Hey everyone, I'm Skylar and I've been working on crypt-lord, a first-person action RPG, for about the past 5 years. It's been a really exciting journey and it's hard to believe that it's been that long already. So what is crypt-lord? It's a first-person action RPG that's designed to give you a dose of dungeon crawling adventure whenever you need it. I wanted to blend the old-school charm, depth, and adventure of older RPGs with more modern conveniences. It's inspired by my favorite game, The Elder Scrolls III Morrowind, and other games like the Kingsfield series and Eco. Recently, a bunch of events came together that led me to decide on quitting my job and work on crypt-lord full time. I know that's not the usual advice that everyone gives. Everyone tells you to always do your indie development game as a side job, but I felt this was the right move for me. I'm super frugal, I live off hardly anything, and I saved up a ton of money. So I was able to move closer to my family and cut down on my living expenses by moving to Kansas. Now I'm working on the game about 70 hours a week instead of the usual 20-ish, so progress is just flying by. The project kept growing and evolving, and eventually it became a sort of Daggerfall-like game with this huge open world and procedurally generated towns and dungeons, literally tens of thousands of them. And while I really enjoyed working on this game and it was very fun from a programming sense, I eventually had to come to the harsh reality that this really isn't that fun to play. It was just repetitive and boring. A hard lesson I learned is that you can't really generate a fun level to play in until you know how to actually make a fun level to play in. You can't give the system the rules for a fun level if you've never experimented with the rules. I would like to explore a Daggerfall-like game in the future, but this was definitely not a good route for the project to take. One of the unique features of crypt-lord is the rune system. Essentially, you can find these runes in dungeons that slot into your weapons and armor to give it some unique effects. These can be as simple as giving your weapon some fire damage, having every third kill restore HP, or you can get crazy like have enemies explode in a pile of guts upon death, allowing you to levitate, whatever it might be. Basically, the limits of this system are endless and it's really easy to create new runes. This works great as a progression system because it directly ties exploration and finding loot into leveling up your character. You can also change whatever runes are equipped on a whim so you aren't locked down to one playstyle or character. Fun fact, I came up with this system pretty late into development. Basically, I was getting annoyed at seeing how much time it took to make all these brand new tiers of weapons and armor that you usually find in RPGs. I felt I was basically getting a small ROI on the work required for what was essentially just bumping your defense up by 10 every few levels. So I said screw it, and I cut out most of the weapon tiers and armor tiers and I'm replacing them with this system. I think it allows a lot more player expression and it's more exciting to find these unique runes instead of just a reskin of another piece of armor or weapon. Another big feature of crypt-lord is the sacrifice system. Essentially, any item you find can be offered to your ancestors as a sacrifice, in which you gain reverence. This reverence is used to increase your stats such as health, stamina, or prayer points. It creates a neat cost-benefit analysis of, do I keep this new rune, or do I sacrifice it to give me a stat boost? Do I load up on these heavy items worth lots of reverence points and in turn neglect picking up health potions, which might help me later? This risk-reward balancing system, it makes inventory management pretty fun, which is usually tedious as hell in an RPG. The last feature I'll talk about today is the world map. It lets you quickly get into a dungeon or go back to the temple, whatever you might want to do, in just a few clicks. One of my core design principles of this game was to allow the player to quickly dive into the content, and the world map really helps facilitate that. The game's completely open. At the start of the game, you could go right up to the last boss if you wanted to, but you'd probably lose. There are 2 crypt guardians in the game which influence dungeons around them, making them more difficult until they're defeated. They also aid the crypt-lord in the last boss fight, so defeating them is probably wise, but again, you don't have to. Really, all the player is incentivized to do is just explore and level up their character. I have soft barriers, like I said, where it might be a little more difficult to jump ahead a bit, but I don't ever want to prevent the player from being able to do so. Anyways, I plan to release these devlogs pretty regularly. I hope you stay tuned as I have a lot of cool stuff to share. Most of them will be more actual development, talking about how I do things and tips and tricks, but I wanted to give this devlog 0 to give a background on the game, as I am starting these well into development. Make sure to subscribe. I plan to release more devlogs like this, as well as tutorials. Also, follow me on Twitter at coffeedev. And lastly, come join the Discord where you can get involved with the game's development, try early builds out, and help shape the game into something you'd like to play. Thanks for watching this video, stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next one.